everybody. Welcome to the second episode of Osprey Observer TV. Your host, Johnny Torres. With me, as always, Editor-in-Chief Marie Gilmore. Hello, Marie.
Hi.
Man, we've got a packed show today. We've got two amazing interviews to share with you guys. Thanks to Marie for lining these up. And you guys are absolutely going to love this. We've got an important interview, which is the chairwoman of the Hillsborough County School Board, Melissa Snively. She's also in the Emergency Policy Group for Hillsborough County. And then a fun interview with Kevin Callahan of the Boy Scouts of America. We're talking about the virtual Camporee and, everything that it took to put that together, how it went, and how you can get involved. And that's all coming up on Osprey Observer TV. And let's get it started first with Melissa Snively. Here we go.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Snively, for being with us today. And she is a local mom, a local business owner, the chairman of our Hillsborough County School Board. She's on the Emergency Policy District. She is very important to the community right now. So we just wanted to check in with you and find out how are we doing with virtual learning. Obviously, this is a unique situation. We've never done this before. How's it going at the school board level?
I would say that I'm pleasantly surprised at how many people are acclimating themselves to e-learning. We had a few hurdles to jump the first couple of weeks to prepare our teachers and prepare our students and our parents for something that was very, very much out of so many people's comfort zones and just something we've never done before. I mean, these are just interesting times to be in. So we had some internet access issues. We had some electronic device issues, but I think we've had, and also we've had some challenges with teachers getting really familiar with how to use EDSB and what all the tools and resources are available to them on EDSB, and then the students using that as well. And some of the things that we thought the students may already know how to do because they're so good on their phones or mobile devices, but we realized that there are some things they didn't know how to do, like upload and download files and scan documents and email them and things of that nature. So overall, we're kind of in a groove now after the first couple of weeks, and it's certainly not perfect. There are some students like mine who are struggling because they're not very self-motivated. They still need some structure. So we're trying to encourage parents to give them that structure and to help them make sure that they are staying on track. And hopefully most of them, I would say we're probably about 70% of students are on track for learning to complete what they need to complete and be ready by the end of the year. So we'll probably do some summer learning just to catch some kids up. But for the most part, overall, I think the superintendent and his staff have done a really great job.
So, Mrs. Snively, you mentioned there right out of the gate, of course, everything that it took. And unfortunately, it's in a crisis like these oftentimes where we kind of see what we're truly made of. It was inspiring to see people step up, not only the school board and everything you guys had to scramble to, get organized internally, but also to see the community. We saw Spectrum step up and offer internet access for a lot of families. Can you explain to us a little bit more about, really that part of the process early on to really get this off the ground?
Sure. Okay, so we found out first of all that we had a lot of students that did not have access to the internet or access to an electronic device like a computer or a laptop or a workstation or something like of that nature. So those were big hurdles that we had to face, and we had to do some negotiating with Spectrum, with Comcast, in order to get folks internet access for free or very, very reduced rate. We also had to purchase some hotspots. About 1,000 hotspots have been purchased by the school district because there are still places in Hillsborough County where students, even if they wanted Comcast or Spectrum, that they are having difficulty getting that internet service. Some pockets, I would say. And so we have purchased about 1,000 hotspots in order to make sure that even the students in the more remote locations in Hillsborough County still can gain access to the internet. We have given out, checked out, kind of like a library book. We've checked out about 40,000 devices to families so far. And we still have about 30 more on order because we know that there are still families that may have multiple children. They're all sharing one device, and it's very challenging if that's the only device that you have. So we still have about 30,000 more that we're trying to get out to students in the next week or two, so that multiple student families have more than one device in their household. And then, of course, we had to do a lot of professional development for our teachers to prepare them on planning and what that looks like as far as assignments on EDSB and all of the things that they would have to do electronically that they would normally are used to doing in their classrooms.
Yeah.
What would you say that we have done right here in Hillsborough County?
Well, I think we've done a lot of things right in this crisis. I mean, there's a lot of things that we've done really, really well. And I think one of the first things we did well was select a great superintendent. I mean, we had a brand new superintendent named Addison Davis coming in the first week of March, and then all of a sudden, coronavirus, right? And so we had a brand new superintendent. He's not from Hillsborough County. We haven't had a superintendent coming from outside of the county in over 50 years. So he came from Clay County, previously from Duval, so he had familiarity with large school districts, but he had to come in and quickly get acclimated and really hit the ground running in the middle of a crisis. And I think he did a fantastic job. So that's one thing I think the school board did right, is choosing a great superintendent who's able to handle this pandemic and handle all of the repercussions that come from having to stay in quarantine. But the other things we've done well, aside from getting over the hurdles with electronic devices and e-learning, we've been able to feed a lot of families, and we're still figuring some kinks out. It really is because the situation's so fluid. Some things change like week to week, day to day, hour to hour. I think we're getting to a point where we're getting really good with making sure that we're getting meals to our families who need them. But we have given out about 3 million meals to families all over the school district who qualify for free or reduced lunch. So we're giving out, we used to give them out daily. We have 147 sites that we were distributing. Then we started going in, putting food on the buses and taking them into neighborhoods when people didn't have transportation to get to their local school for pickup. And then we started doing them in weeks. And so instead of picking a meal up day by day, because that can be very difficult for families to get to a site every single day at a certain time, we started giving them out weekly versions of an entire menu for the whole week. And so we had some issues with people, unfortunately, picking up meals that probably shouldn't have. So we had to put some accountability measures in place. There's some people who are very desperate right now, so it's understandable. Desperate times call for desperate measures, but we think we have put enough accountability features in place that the people who should be getting meals are getting their meals.
Now, we heard from the governor that he was going to expedite construction projects throughout the state. Have you all taken that approach with expansion of schools, the finalizing of construction of new schools, and of course the updating, the air conditioning units, that sort of thing? Is that also something you've been able to do during this time now that the students are not in the buildings?
We haven't. It's a really good time for us to be expediting some of the projects that we originally had saved for summer. So we're going ahead and getting started on replacing some air conditioning units, replacing roofs, doing some of the other structural updates that are necessary, finishing building some of the schools, Sumner High School, which is still, we're putting the finishing touches on that new high school in the south part of the county. But yes, we're taking advantage of that. And then we're probably going to we might have to adjust our construction plans a little bit because they are based on the sales tax referendum, which we know will probably be impacted the few months that we've seen the economy slow down. And we are 2 months in arrears on receiving that revenue. And so we probably won't see a significant change in that maybe until July or August when we get the revenues for maybe March and April. That's going to be probably significant. So we might have to make some adjustments and prioritize on some of our projects if the referendum dollars are not what we expect in those months.
From the standpoint of a mom who has children in the school district, I think you guys have done a fantastic job of communication, of pivoting really for such a huge amount of students to be able to create programs and to communicate changes on such a quick basis. I think from the school board level down, there's been good communication. I have no complaints.
Well, I appreciate that because, Mr. Davis, our new superintendent, that is one of his strengths. We knew that coming in, that he just did recently won a big award for the strength of his communication skills as a superintendent, a state award. And so we knew that was a strength coming in, and we really appreciate the fact that he's been very communicative, and also managing expectations well is a big part of his job. But he's also been agile and nimble where he needs to be. He's listening to feedback. He's trying to understand what changes need to happen, and sometimes, like I said, things change weekly, daily, hourly, and as he gets new information, he might have to change the way we do something, and it does require a level of agility from him. But he's also been very communicative about making whatever changes he needs to make, and that's really appreciated by a lot of teachers and parents and community members.
Right.
Yeah, I have a couple of teachers in my family that work here in the school district, in addition to some kids, and so I've been, really fascinated to watch the whole process kind of unroll, from multiple angles here. But what's curious to me, and it's something that I've talked about often, we even mentioned it on our first podcast with Marie, which is, what does our community look like post-coronavirus, right? Mm-hmm. And so my curiosity is, are you finding practices, programs, things that you think are going to stick around even after we're done with this? I mean, obviously, this was such a huge rollout that you guys had to undertake, but I could see that there was probably some really fun discoveries, in terms of, maybe opportunities that can stick around even after the coronavirus comes and goes.
Yeah, I think that education will definitely change. I think the way people view education, I think first of all, people really appreciate teachers a lot more than they probably did before. I mean, I think we all appreciate teachers, but there's a different level of appreciation now that we have, which, by the way, Teacher Appreciation Week is May 4th through 8th. And so go ahead and start buying your Ferraris and your diamonds and your European vacations. What I think that it's important to be clear that e-learning is not homeschooling. Homeschooling is different than e-learning, because homeschooling requires the teacher at home to assign curriculum, research curriculum, develop and assign curriculum to their students, whereas that's what the teachers are still doing. The teachers are still really involved in the curriculum piece of it, and as they are teaching the assignment, and they're putting out videos, and they're having Zoom meetings, and they're putting out a lot of resources on EDSB. And so I don't want people to get confused and go, you know what, I think we're just going to leave the traditional school system and start virtual school or start homeschooling our kids. So be careful, because some of you, it may work well for homeschooling. Some kids are going to be great and they're going to thrive in a homeschool environment, but it is a lot of work for parents who do homeschool their children. If you ask any homeschool parent, it is not the same as the e-learning environment. And so I do think, though, that we will have some kids who do thrive in a virtual learning environment, maybe choose to do virtual school as opposed to going back to the traditional public school. So it'll be interesting, and I think that there's going to be more flexibility necessary, because some kids might even need a hybrid. Maybe you go to school and we're doing some of that now, but a lot of people may feel like, that's really better even for me to go to school for a few hours a day and then do the rest of it virtually. And so maybe a hybrid of traditional public school and virtual school. But I think a lot of people are going to view education differently and really try and find what's best for your student, where they're going to thrive the most. And the nice thing is, you've got a lot of choices. That's the beauty of it. You've got so many choices to figure out where your child is going to succeed and be in the best environment educationally.
I know we're just down to a last couple minutes, because I know you've got another meeting to prepare for. So I just wanted to ask, being the chairperson, the chairman of the Hillsborough County School Board this year, put you in a unique scenario that you are the representative for the school district on the emergency policy group. Can you tell us just quickly about what that entails and how different, and what you've learned from from doing that. And you guys have also been very informative and really good at communicating. And I appreciate everything that you're paying attention to in that group on our behalf as citizens of the county. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that feedback. And the emergency policy group really was established to help make decisions, executive decisions about Hillsborough County in locally and kind of a short-term thing. It really was, I think, established for planning for hurricanes and emergencies of that nature. So this is really probably a little bit outside of the purview of what was presumed that the EPG would be working on. Interestingly, the school board has never been a member of the emergency policy group until last September. So this is, I get to be the first person, the guinea pig, on the EPG as a school board representative. And so that's unique, but I can understand why they would want a school board member on the EPG with the county commissioners and the mayors and the law enforcement, because we are the largest employer in the county. We have the largest mass transit system in the county. We have the largest amount of facilities that we own in Hillsborough County. And when you take the students and the families and the faculties and you put it all together, we're bigger than the city of Tampa. And so I could see where it's important to have the school district on there, especially with hurricanes and the shelters that we provide. Normally, I wasn't at the meeting where they decided to put a school board chair on the committee, but I'm presuming that mainly it had to do with hurricanes and the fact that they're using so many of our facilities for hurricane shelters, and that's why they wanted to make sure someone from the school district was, on board with the EPG. But it's been a very interesting and eye-opening experience, and I'm looking forward to actually hopefully winding down the EPG. And so many of the executive orders are coming from the state and federal government, and those really supersede anything that we can do. So I'm hoping today we talk about how much longer we need to convene, and are we still relevant?
Well, and to piggyback on Marie's comments, I just want to personally thank you. I know a lot of my friends want to thank you for the leadership role that you took on the EPG, especially when it came to the curfew and the mask mandate. We felt that, while everyone was really doing their best to be a constructive member of the community, there was obviously, a pushback on those items. And it's even as loud as I know the community was on those things. It's certainly not easy to be the one to carry that torch and go into that group of leaders of our community and say, hey, I think we kind of, took this a bit too far, and you did that. And, I think that really made a huge impact on the community, and a lot of people took notice.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. It is a strange place to be, and like any other place where you're making decisions like that, it's a lot easier from the outside looking in. When you're on the field, it's a different view than when you're sitting in the stadium looking down. And so I appreciate all the people that gave me feedback and have given the EPG members feedback. And it's really important to hear from our constituents and to hear from our community members so that we can try and make the best decisions that we can with the information that we have. So thank you.
Thank you so much for carving us into your day in between meetings. I really appreciate it. You're doing a wonderful job. I appreciate you as a mom, a wife, a business owner, school board member, EPG member. You're just amazing. You're Superwoman.
And I have a board of review. I have to put a scout on tonight for that.
Oh my gosh.
On top of everything, you're just incredible. Thank you so much for joining us, and take care. Anything we can do for you, please reach out. Communicate with us. We would love to.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks again to Melissa Snively from the Hillsborough County School Board and Emergency Policy Group. We look forward to more of her leadership in our community. Now, a fun interview with Kevin Callahan with Boy Scouts of America. We're talking virtual Camporee.
I am really excited about our next guest. This past weekend, the Boy Scouts of America did something really special. At least one group did up in Baltimore. They presented a great virtual Camporee 2020. And what happened is Boy Scouts really can't gather and do campouts right now due to quarantine and social distancing, but everybody can camp out at home. So whether you slept in a sleeping bag on the floor, set up your tent indoors like we did, or set up outside. You got to participate with the virtual Camporee, and the organizer and one of the hosts for the whole weekend, Kevin Callahan, is here with us, I think, from Baltimore. Welcome,
yes,
Kevin.
Yes, live straight from Baltimore. Yep. So I'm going to go ahead and right off the top say I was one of many organizers for the weekend. A lot of people were involved in the planning and execution of the weekend. I was just the one that had the most enthusiasm and willingness to get in front of a camera and act silly. So they pushed me right into that role, and I took off and running with that. But there was a whole crowd of folks in our Arrowhead district, which is in the Baltimore Area Council, that helped plan and run the whole weekend. And it really took off. I really wasn't expecting it to be quite so much, but we kind of hoped maybe we'd have a few scouts in our local area participate. And here we are having scouts in Florida and Washington and Japan and all kinds of places, all corners of the earth.
So tell us about the event and how it pulled together.
Well, it sort of started. We were supposed to have an actual in-person event called a Camporee. The Camporee is kind of a gathering of various troops and packs within a local area that then participate in challenges and different activities and fellowship. And we do it about once or sometimes twice a year just to gather together all our units in a particular local area. And that was actually supposed to have been this past weekend for us. And we decided, well, now that we're quarantining and can't get together in person, why not do something a little bit virtual? We were inspired by a few other virtual campouts or camporees that we saw being hosted by some other scouting groups throughout the country that have happened earlier in April, rather. And we're kind of inspired by them, and we could do that for our district and kind of make up for the fact that we're not having our regular district Camporee. And let's do it. And we kind of jumped straight into it. We kind of got everybody together that was part of the Camporee team for the in-person activity, and we started planning everything out. I can't really recall, but somebody had the fantastic idea to call it the Great Virtual Camporee of 2020, which I think really made it take off, because then it wasn't a local thing. It wasn't the Arrowhead District Camporee. It was the Great Virtual Camporee of 2020, and that brought in a crowd of people that we wouldn't have got otherwise, I think. And I really think the secret to what we did was the social media aspect. We placed everything on Facebook and Instagram, and rather than doing a lot of live activities, via Zoom or other WebEx, something like that, we put everything on social media and kind of laid out a schedule and laid out a framework for what people should be doing at home, and challenged them to get in your backyard, set up a tent, a tarp or a hammock. And if you can't do any of that, then hey, pull that sleeping bag out and stick it on your living room floor, or heck, pitch your tent in the living room. I was really surprised when I saw pictures of how many people have tents in their living room. That was pretty fantastic. And the idea was just get out of the normal, break away from being in your bed, break away from maybe even sitting in front of the computer, because I think a lot of us right now are sitting in front of the computer a lot, whether we're as adults we're teleworking, or as youth or scouts we're going to school virtually. We're spending a lot of time in front of the computer, so we wanted to kind of break away from that. So rather than doing a bunch of live streamed activities, we kind of posted a framework of what we wanted to see scouts do and families to do, and we gave it to them via Facebook and Instagram, and it said, go do it at home, get outside, do some service projects around your community. We really encourage people to pick up trash, was one thing. We posted some videos on knots. Okay, now let's see the videos or pictures of you doing those knots. My, of course, favorite activity was mealtime. Every meal we posted a video asking, okay, what'd you have for breakfast? What did you have for dinner? Let's see. And it was really cool to see what people were making. A lot of people really were taking their cooking outdoors, like kind of what we had hoped. And they were doing this outdoor cooking. They had Dutch ovens out, or they were doing stuff over their grills or a campfire pit. Oh man, it was really amazing. And using again that social media aspect, rather than saying, okay, let's follow along with what we're doing all weekend, we said, here's what you should be doing at home. Now let's see pictures of it. And from that, I think it kind of snowballs, because people see pictures of what you're doing and they see how exciting and fun it is, and they share it and they like it. And next thing you know, more people want to do it. And suddenly we went from the idea of maybe bringing in some scouts in our local area to, we had, I think 3,500 members of our Facebook group by the middle of the weekend. And, which I started to realize meant that there was probably over 10,000 people probably really following along at home, because you assume maybe like a family of 4 or something like that. Maybe only one mom or dad's following on Facebook. There's a lot more people at home there participating than you're really seeing just by the members of the groups.
So Kevin, and again, is this now something, because we were just talking to, again, the chairman of our school board, and Melissa was also talking about some of the takeaways, that, were obviously developed and executed because of this crisis. Do you see this as something that might become an annual thing?
Boy, that's a really good question. Part of me wants to say yes, because I loved it. It was a great weekend. I think at the end of the day, I'd rather be in person with everybody, and having this Camporee be an in-person thing. But it could be a annual thing, though, in a virtual environment, where you could bring people in from all across the country and even across the world participating. I could definitely see that. I think, it kind of gains a little bit of traction, and people see how exciting it could be. I could definitely see it happening again in the future. My thought is that we do have some activities throughout the year. One's called the Jamboree on the air, and it's sort of like a similar activity, but it's really more of a meet and greet. Kind of like like what we're doing right now. People set up a video conference, right, and they do a meet and greet, and they have some fellowship. But what I really loved about what we did was that it was a family activity. Everybody was participating as a family, as a scout group at home. And then collectively, we were all sharing it, and that's where the fellowship happened. So I could see this happening again in the future.
Well, and I think you talked about a couple things, which is really what I felt scouting contributed to my family. I was in scouts for a number of years, and I think it's bringing back those family values, the family unit, getting them to engage together in some fun activities, and also the fact that, given some of the challenges you guys have had lately, I think this has probably been a great marketing vehicle to remind people how great and how fun scouting is, and even in a virtual setting, right? And then hopefully that'll translate to more members, once this thing passes.
I mean, I would hope so. I mean, that's certainly what one of my hopes to be. Another hope would just be that retention. We have a lot of scouts right now that, because we're not, every Monday or night or Friday night or whatever night we meet, sitting in that church basement or in the local VFW and meeting in person, we don't want them to completely forget about scouting, and then suddenly the aims that we're trying to get out of them being in scouting get lost, or then maybe once quarantines are lifted, maybe they don't come back. So we don't want that either. But yeah, hopefully it's also a good marketing tool to bring more scouts in. I mean, really at the end of the day, we tried to kind of promote a little bit of the outdoor aspect this weekend, but the outdoors is really just the hook. It's how we provide scouts with something fun that makes them want to show up every week and camp every month, things like that. But we're really just trying to instill some values and ethics in them that'll hopefully translate to them as they grow older, becoming valuable citizens in our country and in the global community. And I think kind of keeping that in their minds is really important. And I really saw that not only that nationwide community, but that global community this weekend, and how important that is. I think probably one of my favorite activities we saw this weekend was we did a hike time, but we kind of encouraged people during the hike to pick up trash. Do something easy that you could do within your community to make a benefit. And we saw lots of pictures of how people did that. And my hope is that, some of those folks were wearing some sort of scout t-shirt or hat or something related to scouts, and someone in their neighborhood saw them doing it, and they'll think, hey, look at those scouts picking up trash. Maybe I could do that too.
Well, from a family who participated and camped out in our living room,
yeah.
We went on a hike, we picked up litter, we did a geocaching activity, and we included the 5-year-old little brother. And that was fun for us because he can't go camping with his 15-year-old Boy Scout big brother. So this was really fun for him. He loved the lantern and the s'mores. We really participated as a family probably for the first time. So I really have to thank you and everyone involved for putting this together. It was so much fun. Just a last little question. We just have a couple of minutes left. I want to ask you, Kevin, tell us about how you got involved in scouting, who your scout is, and what it means to you.
So I think some good questions there. So I got involved as I don't know, 6-year-old tiger cub. Joined my local pack and rose up through the ranks in Cub Scouts. I earned my Arrow Light, and then bridged over into a Boy Scout troop, where I then stayed involved all the way until I was 18. I earned the rank of Eagle Scout as a 17-year-old, and stuck around for a few years helping out as a assistant scoutmaster while I was in college. While I had a little bit of time, worked summers at that point at Philmont Scout Ranch in New Mexico. So got the opportunity to kind of keep scouting going in the summertime when I wasn't away at college. Then kind of about the time I was maybe 23 or 24 and I graduated, it was kind of on to other things in life. But then I came back to scouting about 5 or 6 years ago. I heard that the pack and the troop that I was involved in as a kid was kind of struggling a little bit, that they didn't have the leadership maybe that they needed. So came in as a volunteer with our Boy Scout troop at the time as assistant scoutmaster, and then I actually took over as scoutmaster for a little while. And then we had an opening at Cub Master this past year, so I stepped down as scoutmaster and moved to Cub Master. And so it's been a whirlwind ride the last 5 or 6 years as I've been kind of involved in scouting as an adult, and I love every minute of it. And looking forward to kind of answer and tie in with your final question. Looking forward to the fall, because this fall my 5-year-old will join Lions. So I actually at this point don't have a son or daughter in the program, but will in the fall. So
okay.
looking forward to finally, after all these years, getting to wear 2 hats, and that's as a scout leader and a dad. So looking forward to that.
Wow, what an exciting few years you have ahead. And
yes,
many people may not realize these are all volunteer positions. The time you put in, the activities you plan, the weekends you spend out with the kids, it's all voluntary. And so thank you for your service. We, as Boy Scouts, being a Boy Scout mom, I feel like the Scouts do a lot in their communities, a lot of community service. The Eagle Projects are always benefiting local organizations. And I just think I'm really impressed with the program. We're proud to be a Boy Scout family. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, of course.
And what a successful Camporee weekend. I'm looking forward. We ordered our patches for our troop. 10 of our troop members camped this weekend. So 10 of us will be having the patches to put on our sash. So thank you so much. We'll stay in touch for sure. And thank you for what you do for Boy Scouts of America.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure to work with so many good young people, and then also adults as well. As you said, we're all volunteers, so it's great to work with such a great group of volunteers, both in my own home unit, which is PAC 764, but then also within the Arrowhead District and the Baltimore Area Council. So it's really my pleasure, and getting to see all the smiles on the faces of our young scouts is really what it's all about. And I saw a lot of smiles over the weekend, especially with all those pictures and videos that we had on Facebook. So it was a great weekend. I loved it.
Well, and really quick to that point, Kevin, again, thank you so much for joining us. If someone does want to go back, and I think you mentioned there was a group on Facebook or a page, can you just explain real quick how they can find that?
Sure. On Facebook, we are Great Virtual Camporee of 2020. If you do a search, you should be able to find our page. It's okay. You can join the group, which will allow you to follow, but it's an open group, so anybody can view the activities we had, and the different videos we posted, and then all the great pictures that people shared along at home. We have an Instagram page, which was Camporee 2020, at Camporee 2020. But it's still really a lot of the same content. Just was trying to reach maybe a little bit of younger audience with Instagram.
Awesome. Well, well done. And, as Fred Rogers, would say, in times of crisis, you look for the helpers. And I think what you guys have done, certainly goes far beyond even what I think you've realized that you've been able to accomplish. There's lots of kids at home who are by themselves. They don't have siblings, and they haven't been able to see their friends in what is now months. And I know something like this probably meant a lot to them. So thank you so much for doing this.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on today.
Thank you, Kevin. Nice to meet you.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Thanks again to Chairwoman Melissa Snively from the Hillsborough County School Board, Kevin Callahan from Boy Scouts of America. This was a great show, packed with interviews. Loved it. And for our second one, I'm excited for what's next. But speaking of what's next, what's fresh on OspreyObserver.com?
Well, we just went to press with our Bloomingdale Fish Hawk edition. We have a couple of really great stories in there. I mean, all the stories are really great, but a few that are notable. One is a couple of organizations, groups, kids, Randall Middle School, who are making masks for essential workers with their 3D printers.
Wow.
I thought that was a pretty interesting story. The second one we have is, have you ever seen the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile?
Yes.
Yes, it is parked in Fish Hawk because the driver has a parent who lives in Fish Hawk and is quarantining down here. So you may just see the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile driving around. He's a hot dogger. So that's a really fun story. And we just have all kinds of news in the Osprey Observer. We also update every single day on our website COVID-19 cases in our community. So every day at 11, it's released through the state of Florida, how many are identified in each community, and we put that update right there on OspreyObserver.com. So stay tuned, more news to come.
All right, that wraps up another edition of Osprey Observer TV. On behalf of Marie Gilmore, I'm Johnny Torres. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week.